Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back today to do another video. This one is going to be talking primarily about Tobias Harris of the Los Angeles Clippers and basically about his impending free agency coming this offseason. His contract will be up. He will be seeking a newer, bigger contract because he has played really well this season and deserves to be paid well. To go over his statistics pretty quick here for you. So this season, he is averaging 21 points a game, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal a game. He is shooting 50% from the field. He is taking around 5 3-pointers a game, and he's making 44% of them, which is highly impressive. He is shooting 89% from the line. So all around really good numbers, amazing shooting numbers, like utterly, utterly impressive shooting numbers. Really, I think he'll likely demand around $20 million a year in free agency. I feel like he's not quite perennial all-star level, so I don't think 30 million is fair, but maybe 20 to 25 million, somewhere in that range. Maybe like if he was going to sign with a team like the Knicks, I'd say he'd probably sign for like 28 million just because they'd throw money at him because they have a ton of cap space. But I am not going to include the Knicks in these potential teams that he could go to because I just feel like the Knicks are always in the free agency conversation talk, but then the biggest free agency signings they've made for the last decade are Enes Kanter and Tim Hardaway Jr., who really, in the scheme of things, are nobodies. So the first team I have on here is kind of the easy pick. The Los Angeles Clippers. He could just re-sign with the Clippers. Is my first pick for a team that he could go to. They'll have a ton of cap space and free agency. Like right here, I will count up some of the contracts that will be up. So between Tobias Harris, Gortat, Marjanovic, Theodosic, Beverly, Mike Scott, Luka Mbah-a-Moute, that adds up to roughly, let's see here, 28, 41, like 55 million between those like 7 guys. So there'll be plenty of cap space if they want to re-sign him, maybe like 20 to 25 million. They could actually bring in another max guy like Kawhi then too if they sign him for like 20 million or like 23 million. Then you could bring in Kawhi for like 32 million. And let's just look at that starting lineup, what that would look like if they brought in those guys. Then you'd have like Gilgeous-Alexander as your starting point guard. Your starting shooting guard would probably be Avery Bradley, small forward, Kawhi, power forward, Tobias Harris. Starting center would likely then be Montrezl Harrell. Coming off the bench, you'd have like Danilo Gallinari and Jerome Robinson as like your main bench guys, which sounds kind of bad for depth, but you got a really solid starting lineup. So yeah, they could do that for sure. Next team I have on here is the team that Kawhi would be coming from, which is the Toronto Raptors. I feel like Tobias Harris is going to be like the fallback option for a lot of teams during free agency this year. Like if a team can't land Kawhi, I feel like they'll go after Tobias Harris because although he's not Kawhi, he's still a 6'8", 6'7" forward who can play the same position as Kawhi. He can handle the ball, he can score off the dribble, he can create his own shot, he can penetrate, but he can also be a guy that doesn't need the ball to score either. He can sort of be a poor man's Klay Thompson too, in that he can just catch and shoot, and he's a really good three-point percentage. So he can kind of be whatever you need him to be, but just as a slightly lesser version than any All-Star. That being said, if Toronto loses Kawhi to, let's say, like the Lakers, then I could see them trying to bring in a Tobias Harris to fill his shoes. Again, they will have some space in free agency too. So assuming Kawhi opts out, and let's say that they don't re-sign DeLon Wright or Greg Monroe, they'll have 25 million to deal with. I could see them wanting to re-sign Danny Green, who's making $10 million this year. So let's assume they re-sign Danny Green, and then they don't bring back DeLon Wright or Greg Monroe, but then instead sign Tobias Harris. You could see their starting lineup looks something like Kyle Lowry at the 1, at the 2, Danny Green at the 3, Tobias Harris at the 4, Pascal Siakam at the 5, Serge Ibaka. Off the bench, you've got, of course, Valanciunas and Fred VanVleet, and probably CJ Miles will opt into his contract, so he'll be there as well. So you've still got a pretty good team. Probably not like the 1 seed like they are this year, probably more like the 4 seed. But I think that they'd still be pretty good, and it would kind of be like a team where everybody's equal. There's not really an alpha dog per se, because I don't really see Tobias Harris ever being like a 28 point per night kind of guy like Kawhi probably could be. I think of Tobias Harris kind of being about at the level he is right now, like 20 to 21 points during the course of his prime. The next team I have on here is the Los Angeles Lakers, who again are sort of a fallback option type of thing. I could see if they don't get Kawhi Leonard or Jimmy Butler or Kyrie or anybody like that, that they'd go after Tobias Harris. That being said, I think he actually would fit really well with them. What are the guys that LeBron likes to play with? Guys that are really good at catching and shooting. Kyle Korver, Ray Allen, Kevin Love, Chris Bosh. Tobias Harris can be that exact type of player. And you might be saying to yourself, like, well, where would he really fit? You got Brandon Ingram, you've got Kyle Kuzma, but those are the same things people are asking if they were to bring in a Jimmy Butler or a Kawhi Leonard as well. So it's the same question with Tobias Harris. I actually think he would work really well with this team. So let's say, like, to get him, they don't re-sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and they let go Lance Stevenson, Michael Beasley, and JaVale McGee. Okay, so then your starting lineup would probably look something like Kuzma at the 1, and then besides that, or no, excuse me, Lonzo Ball at the 1, and then besides that, you'd or Lonzo or Rajon Rondo, whoever you want to start at the 1. I'm assuming in this scenario that they re-sign Rondo, just because he's been pretty good for them this year. Then coming off of that, at the 2, the 3, the 4, I think you'd have some combo of LeBron, Kuzma, and Tobias Harris. I think you could really play him however you wanted. You could also put Brandon Ingram in there too, and maybe have like Kuzma come off the bench. You could have Ingram as a shooting guard. You could have LeBron as a small forward and Tobias Harris as a power forward. Then have Kuzma come off the bench. Really, I feel like all these guys are like 6'8", and they can basically play any position between the 2 and the 4 just because of their sizes. So I don't think it's going to be sort of like positionless basketball and won't really matter all that much. Honestly, if I were them, I'd re-sign JaVale McGee, probably try and re-sign him too. So maybe let Rondo go and re-sign JaVale McGee as your 5 and then try and get Tobias Harris. Of course, this is, again, if they can't land any big fish free agents like Jimmy Butler or Kawhi or any big guy like that. Okay, so moving on. This is one of the teams that I like best for him to go to just because I really like their young core. This would be the Sacramento Kings. Also for this, I'm assuming that they re-sign Willie Cauley-Stein in the offseason, probably to like $15 million, which I think is right around what he'll get. They'll still have a lot of space because Zach Randolph is coming off the books. Iman Shumpert, between those two guys, you've got $23 million. And then Kosta Koufos, add him on. Then you've got around, let's see here, $32 million in cap space. And then Ben McLemore's gone too, so that's like 37. So I think that they could re-sign Cauley-Stein and Tobias Harris with $37 million. And then your starting lineup would look something like probably, let me see here, probably De'Aaron Fox, Buddy Hield, Tobias Harris, and then Bjelica and Cauley-Stein as your 5. You've got a lot of good spacing on the court there. You've got like 3 guys who are like knockdown 3-point shooters between Hield, Bjelica, and Tobias Harris. You've got a really good cutter in De'Aaron Fox. You've got a good rim protector and rim runner in Cauley-Stein. So you've got a pretty good, like a really good starting lineup, honestly, actually. And then you've got Bogdanovich off the bench and Marvin Bagley off the bench. Those are really solid guys off the bench to have. So I like that team a lot if they go out and get Tobias Harris and re-sign Cauley-Stein. I think that they could push for like a 6 seed maybe in the West, if not higher, like 5 seed even. Again, another team on here I have is sort of like a backup option if they don't get someone better. The Philadelphia 76ers. Now, if I were them, instead of trying to re-sign Jimmy Butler, I would actually just say, no thanks, we're not interested, and go after Tobias Harris. Because really, you look at Jimmy Butler, he's 29 years old, which is all right. But Tobias Harris, I think, is a bit younger, if I am correct. Let's see here. Tobias Harris is 26, so that's 3 years younger than Jimmy Butler. So if you sign each guy to like a 4-year deal, I guess technically they can sign Butler to a 5-year deal. So at the end of Butler's last year of his deal, he'd be making $35 million when he's 34. He's already has severe injury problems, so I don't really know if he'd be worth that much at 34 years old. Whereas Tobias Harris, you sign him to a 4-year deal. He'll be 30 when that's done because he'll be 27, 28, 29, 30 because he can only sign for 4 years because he's not currently with the team. So I like them signing him better. Again, if they don't re-sign Butler, um, they'll have plenty of room because Wilson Chandler, Jimmy Butler, J.J. Redick, Mike Muscala, Justin Patton, all those guys coming off the books add up to, let's see here, roughly 33, 53 million. So they'll have plenty of space. Honestly, if I were them, I'd let J.J. Redick go. I'd let Wilson Chandler go. I'd try and sign Butler to around 30 million a year and try and use the other 20 to get Harris, and then your starting lineup could look something like Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris. Probably you're going to have to start. Let's see here. Who else would you start? Probably going to have to go with like Amir Johnson if they could re-sign him to like a veterans minimum, and then you'd be looking all right. And then you'd have Embiid at the 5. But their depth would be very poor, but they'd have a really solid core 4. Okay, and then you got this last team on here. It's New Orleans, the New Orleans Pelicans, and essentially I think in this video they'd have to say to themselves, we're going all in on keeping Anthony Davis. So coming off the books, they have enough space to sign Tobias Harris, but then also I'd advise them to re-sign Mirotic as well. They have Julius Randle actually signed to a really nice contract for only $9 million a year. And then let's say that they re-sign Mirotic to around the 12.5 he's making right now. That leaves them with about 20 million to work with if they don't re-sign like the likes of Wesley Johnson, Darius Miller, Ian Clark, and Alfred Payton. So then you could have Tobias Harris there as well. And then you're looking at a starting lineup of something like, well, they wouldn't have Alfred Payton, so probably like Drew Holiday at the 1, Each-One Moore at the 2, probably Tobias Harris at the 3, at the 4 and the 5, Julius Randle and Anthony Davis, however they wanted to stack them. And then you could have, let's see here, Nikola Mirotic off the bench, who he could play a little bit of the 3, he could play the 4, and they could have somebody slide to the 5 between Julius Randle and Anthony Davis and then have him at the power forward, Mirotic that is. So you'd have options, and you got a lot of guys that can switch positions. AD can play power forward or center, same with Julius Randle, and then Tobias Harris can play small forward or power forward, just like Mirotic, so you have a lot of switchability. And then I'd say there you have like a really solid 5 guys between Holiday, Harris, Mirotic, Julius Randle, and Anthony Davis. That'd be sort of like their death lineup, I think, at the end of the games. Maybe sub in Each-One Moore for like Julius Randle, I don't know, but I like that idea a lot of bringing him into there. That'd be like if they were like, we need to keep Anthony Davis, we refuse to trade him. That I think would be a good move, and that I don't think the demand for Tobias Harris would be super high because he's somewhat underrated, but at the same time, it's like a move that you can say, you can be like, look at this, like we're bringing in quality, talented guys for you to play with. Like, please stay here. We're trying our hardest. And I think that they could be like a 6 seed with Tobias Harris maybe, or a 7 seed to set themselves apart in the West. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have anything to say or like agreement or disagreement, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.